This episode is brought to you by Me&M, the British modern luxury clothing label designed for busy women. Founded and designed in London, Me&M is about intelligent style. Much thought and care are put into the design process, so every piece is flattering, functional, and made to last forever. Me&M is well known for its trousers and how I got to know the brand. It's my go-to for styles that are comfortable enough to wear in the kitchen or the restaurant, also polished enough for meetings. Me&M is available online and in stores across London, Edinburgh, and New York. If you're in London, I'd really recommend heading to their beautiful brand new flagship store in Marylebone, which opens on the 29th of October. What's the song with food?
Song with food. Sugar by the Arches. Because I am a sugar freak.
So. You were my candy girl, and you got me wanting you.
What about I Found My Thrill?
Oh, on Blueberry Hill.
On Blueberry Hill. Or Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling.
Do not forsake me, oh my darling, on this our wedding day. An open kitchen in the River Cafe gives me the chance to watch people having dinner with their children. David and Elton uniquely engage with theirs, focused, listening, laughing, all four in their own private world. In between texts with David about plans for getting together, there are photographs. Zachary on a boat with a huge sea bass he's just caught, Elijah kicking a football, all of them in the south of France around a table. Recently, sitting next to Elton at a dinner in the River Cafe, we had no small talk. We spoke immediately about Elton John AIDS Foundation, the polarized world we seem to be living in, and what we need to do as citizens. David and Elton are activists. They registered their civil partnership in 2005. On the first day, it was legal in the UK, leading the way for others to follow with confidence and with pride. Do you remember your first meal you had together?
I do.
Did you meet in a restaurant, or was your first date?
We met here. Our first meal was at this table.
Where were you sitting?
I was sitting there.
Okay,
yeah.
Facing the wall.
I was opposite.
And I was a plus.
Was it a date? Or there were,
no, it was a last-minute invitation with a group of, Elton had come back from touring. He was single, and he had his friend staying with him, and he said, I don't want to sit around the house like a widow. Let's just have a dinner party and invite some people down. Because a lot of your friends...
I was in AA, so I hadn't really met anybody except AA people for 3 years.
So his friend rang my friend, Malcolm.
Is that part of AA that you don't meet? I know you can't drink, but it was so encompassing.
No, yeah. I threw myself into getting well as much as I threw myself into getting unwell. Yeah. So I did what I was told, and I had a great time. But eventually, all I knew was AA people.
Yeah.
I didn't know any other gay people, or I lost touch with them, or whatever. Yeah. And it wasn't certainly a sexual thing when I invited him down.
So he rang. Elton's friend rang my friend Malcolm, and I was going to Malcolm's house for dinner that night. He was having a dinner party, and Elton's friend said, "Why don't you bring your dinner party down to Windsor?" So Elton didn't know me. I had no connection at all. It was very random. And I was vegetarian then. And I came through the door, and you were having, I think, spaghetti bolognese was what everybody was eating. And
so this is your menu for the first night you laid eyes on each other.
And I didn't have spaghetti bolognese, so Elton's housekeeper made me a pasta bake, I think, with cheese, which was fine. But to be honest with you, I was so kind of overwhelmed with meeting Elton John that I didn't really think very much about the food. Yeah. Then the next night, so he asked for my number that evening, and then he called me the next morning and said, I'm coming into London, and would you want to come around and have dinner with me at my house in London? And I said, that would be lovely. And he said, we'll have a Chinese takeaway. And I was like, I love Chinese food. So I arrive at the house, and there's 4 giant cardboard boxes on the kitchen counter, and the table's set for 2. And I said, who else is coming? What's all this food for? And it was for Mr. Chow's. And Elton didn't know what I liked, so he ordered the entire menu.
I'd marry a man like that. I mean, I'd marry you the minute somebody did that for me. I would say, this is the man for the rest of the nice. I think that's a great story.
I'd never been to Mr. Chow's. I hadn't had high-end Chinese food before. We had great Chinese food in Canada, but it was not Mr. Chow's. But it was a really delicious meal. And we talked for hours and hours. than ours. We really connected.
We're here in your beautiful, beautiful house. But you were saying you have lived here for how many years?
I've lived here for next year, which will be 2025. I've lived here 50 years.
50 years. And you've never been tempted to move. Why would you, right?
No, I mean,
why would we?
this is the hub of all the properties we own. This is the hub where the children were brought up and go to school locally.
Yeah.
So it's always lovely to come back. It's the only traditional house we own, but you couldn't really do anything else to it. And I love the fact that it is traditional because I love the garden. And in fact, everything was decimated in 1989 when I knocked the house down practically for 2 years to have it made into a proper home instead of a pop star's house. And I started the garden.
Tell me what a pop star's house looks like.
Well, it had a lot of gold records, a lot of awards. And also I collected Gallet lamps, Tiffany lamps, Art Nouveau, Art Deco, Majorelle furniture. And there was so much of it, it was just all on the floor. And I just basically ran out of room to put anything. As you can see, I'm not a minimalist.
No, you're saying maybe the
No.
Certainly not.
but we could go for it. But you know what? It has,
thought,
it's not
how do I-
minimalist, but it has a quality of real rigor. It does. So you're not, you were saying you're not a minimalist, but...
Yeah, so I decided, how do I get rid of all this stuff? So I decided to say all, basically, apart from 4 cars, some paintings, and a bit of jewellery. And so I had a Sotheby's sale, which was at the V&A for a week. And luckily, we'd sold everything before the crash in 1989. Or I sold it because I hadn't met David by that time. And then I converted it after 2 years. I rented a house in London, which I subsequently bought. And then I came back here 2 years later in 1991.
But that is full of a collection. You might not have the deco furniture and the same art, but you have collected. When you collect, well, we should be talking about food, but do you have a rhythm and a kind of consistency for the kind what you collect? Do you think?
Well,
this will go?
I'd never collected ceramics before. I became a Meissen fanatic, and I became a Staffordshire fanatic. I just wanted to put things that seemed right in that country home. I love silverware. I never come back from a place without something. And then
So does it have a memory? You can look at something and remember. Do you, David? Do you remember
Yes.
where you were when you bought it? Or collected
Absolutely, but I must admit I have a hard time keeping up.
it? Yeah.
Because Elton is such a enthusiastic collector.
Yeah.
And, you know, he grew up and the things in his room when he was a little boy were his friends. So he's always had a great love of objects. Objects he feels have feelings. Don't you?
Well, when I grew up, my parents argued all the time, so my objects were kept in pristine condition and they didn't shout at me, so I loved them. And I've subsequently followed that on through the rest of my life. I do love objects, and they comfort me when I'm on the road. My dressing room is full of objects and stuff like that. It's just very heartwarming for me to see it all.
It's about the curation and the celebration of them
Yeah.
and displaying them lovingly and appreciating them that brings you so much joy. And it gives the house a real sense of order, too.
It does. And also, there's a lot of white, isn't there? I was thinking they give a lot of lightness. These, you know, if you
They
look
do.
at, there's a lot of white and happiness and maybe safety. You know, maybe as you were describing your room, maybe it's safe to have, you know, something that you can look at.
They're
and
standing
remember.
guard.
They're standing guard. Safety in the emotional way. Let's talk about food. So we thought when we would do this, we would have our guests read a recipe. And you're going to read it, David.
So it's risotto with porcini and girolles, and this recipe serves 6. 1 kilogram of fresh porcini and girolles, 1 garlic clove, peeled and finely chopped, 1 teaspoon of fresh thyme, 1 liter of chicken stock, 100 grams of unsalted butter, a red onion finely chopped, 300 grams of risotto rice, 250 milliliters of extra dry white vermouth, and 200 grams of Parmesan freshly grated. Do you want the instructions as
Well,
well?
how are we going to make it otherwise?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Clean the mushrooms by brushing them lightly. Clean the caps of the porcini. Tear any large mushroom into small pieces. In a frying pan, heat 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Add half of the mushrooms, chopped garlic, and thyme, and season. Fry until cooked and the liquid has evaporated. Heat the chicken stock. Melt the butter with the remaining olive oil. Add the chopped onion and cook on a gentle heat until the onion is soft. Add the rice and stir. Pour in the vermouth and cook until absorbed. Stir in the hot stock. ladle by ladle, and cook until the rice is al dente, usually about 20 minutes. Add the cooked wild mushrooms, the remaining butter, and the parmesan, and stir.
Wow.
Happy?
Can we have some?
Yeah, let's make it. We got it in the kitchen. But I heard or I read that you like risotto so much that you actually asked one of your cooks to go to Italy to learn how to make a risotto. Might that be the
That's
case?
true, actually. Yes, we
Really?
did. Yeah. That was
When was that?
well, that was in the 90s when Gianni Versace was a big part of our lives, and we used to go to Gianni's house in Milan. He lived above the offices on Via Gesù in a beautiful apartment that had been decorated by Mongiardino. Spectacular. And the meals were theater, is the only way I can describe it, because he had the white coated butlers with the white gloves, the white jackets. And you sat down and there was a beautiful piece of antique porcelain, and then whoosh, it was cleared away, and then a plate went down with a starter, and then whoosh, it was cleared away, and then another antique porcelain plate came down to be cleared away for the second course, or the primi piatti, and then taken away again for the main course. And the risotto at Gianni's, that was...
Do you remember it,
you
Elton?
loving it
Do you
so
remember
much.
the risotto?
It was like nectar. It was, it was just so luscious. And also, as David said, the presentation went a long way with it, because he got me into collecting china,
Oh, did he?
porcelain, and tablecloths. It was his fault.
Tablecloths.
Yeah.
Tablecloths.
Oh, tablecloths. We're huge on tablecloths.
I want to come and
and
see a
napkin
tablecloth.
rings. Yeah. So Gianni introduced us to the tablecloths in Venice, which was originally
Jezerum.
which is now closed, but it's the most beautiful shop. And then on the island of
Burano.
Burano.
Borano, we went to Dalla Olga, which is the most incredible shop, which has tablecloths of every size. And,
All linen, white linen.
yeah,
And all the hand-done lace.
So I have to say that we went there and spent so much money on one weekend on tablecloths, I couldn't believe it.
And so you asked one of your cooks to learn how to make a risotto properly. Did that work? Did he learn? Or she
Absolutely.
learn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he
Who
still-
was the cook?
Who was
It was
the cook?
Gautier.
It was Gautier, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have either of you ever worked in a restaurant? Did you?
Did I ever work? No, I worked in
No.
a wine merchants, but not a restaurant.
Did you? Ever work?
I waited on tables. I was
did?
a busboy. I was a dishwasher. I was a sous chef. I worked in a kitchen of a golf and tennis club, and I did serve dinners to banquets for 500 people. I served breakfast to golfers. Used to do short order stuff in the kitchen to do the toast and sometimes the bacon and the eggs for people getting ready to go play their golf game. I loved that
What did
environment.
that teach you?
It taught me a lot about the importance of kindness, because particularly for wait staff, because they are under pressure from the chef, they're under pressure from the management, and then they're under pressure from the people they're serving. They get it from all directions. And so I always go out of my way, anyone that serves me, to make sure I'm incredibly grateful and reasonable and polite, and always leave a nice tip. Because it's really hard work, and it can be unforgiving work at times. I don't know, you learn so much about human nature.
Yeah.
Because watching the way people were very particular about their
Yeah.
food was quite a learning experience for me when I worked and
I
waited on
think
tables.
it's a great experience. And
That's why I like the restaurants that I go to, because I like their staff, and I hate people who are rude to serving staff. And I know a lot of people in my business that are, and talk down to them, and that's one thing I hate the most. No, it's the seductiveness is a part of it. It's like Daivo, right, in Venice, which is the simplest restaurant. And it's
But it's beautiful because the maitre d' comes to the table at the beginning of every meal. We've never looked at the physical menu. He comes to the table with this little chalkboard.
Da Ivo is a restaurant in Venice that you get to. It's quite hard to find, isn't it? There's that little light outside.
It's really
But
tucked
the most
away.
beautiful way is to ride by boat, isn't it? Is that how you get there? Do you ever go by boat?
Yes.
That's the only way we go.
Yeah, you
It's
ever
the only way to
by-
go.
Yeah,
Come in through the side window.
side window.
But they arrive with the chalkboard on the beautiful gilded
Yeah,
column,
yeah.
and they give you all of the specials and everything that's being made for the day, and never the same meal twice.
And the simplicity of it is so sexy and so
Yeah.
fun. I hate pretentious restaurants. I can't bear. That's why the River Cafe is always so enjoyable, because you come in, and it's like the greatest canteen in the world, where you mix with a lot of people you know, and where people just seem to be having the best time. The service is great, the atmosphere is fantastic, whether you're inside, whether you're outside, and there's not an ounce of pretentiousness to it.
Yeah,
And if there is, I'm off.
I would say that you'll go back to a restaurant if you didn't have a great meal, but if you were treated as if you weren't, good enough to eat there, then why would you go back? The River Cafe, our all-day space, and just steps away from the restaurant, is now open. In the morning, an Italian breakfast with cornetti, ciambella, and crostata from our pastry kitchen. In the afternoon, ice cream coupes and River Cafe classic desserts. We have sharing plates, salumi misti, mozzarella, bruschetta, red and yellow peppers, vitello tonato, and more. Come in the evening for cocktails with our resident pianist in the bar. No need to book. See you here.
People, are you ready? It's Christmas! Bring your family to rock out at Festival Place this Christmas. Join us from November 16th for live music, children's crafts, and ride the Festive Express before meeting the main man himself in Santa's Grotto. Christmas rocks at Festival Place, Basingstoke. To find out more and to book your grotto tickets, visit festivalplace.co.uk.
Meet the all-new Citroën EC3, the Super Mini proving electric's not just for the elite. Voted Car of the Year and Affordable Electric Car of the Year by Auto Express, this game changer delivers affordability without compromising on comfort, tech or design. Order yours now from £21,990. The all-new Citroën EC3, welcome to the electric revolution. Search Citroën or visit your local Citroën retailer. EC3 on-the-road price includes VAT, delivery to dealer including number plates, government first registration fee and 12 months vehicle excise duty.
I grew up after the war, so everything
Tell
was
me
on
about the early life.
I was born in the council house. I lived with my mother, my grandmother, because my father was away in the Air Force.
Was it your mother's mother?
Yes, my grandmother. She was fantastic.
What was she like?
She was wonderful. She could cook anything and make it taste incredible. I mean, basic ingredients were hard to get after the war. We were rationed, and so bacon was partly a no-no. But she made... I never remember a bad meal or going hungry, and everything that was left over she made into something else the next day. And what I loved about her, because I have the biggest sweet tooth, her bread puddings and her apple pies and her scones and her Victoria sponges. It was very simple. The kitchen was, again, the coal cellar was in the kitchen. It was can you believe it? The laundry was done on the stove in a boiler. And we had a mangle it was a very basic upbringing, but I can never remember, the smell of cooking was always wonderful, and she could cook anything. I fell in love with very basic, simple English food at that point.
I think that simple English food, as you talk about bread pudding and apple pie, those are they're not easy to make, you know, and it's to do with the ingredients and the method and the way you cook.
Yeah, and things like... spotted egg and custard. I always walk into a restaurant, say in Yorkshire or something like that, and then sometimes they have things like that on the menu, and you go, "Oh my God, they have spotted egg and custard," which for me is just a sheer delight. I always sometimes think that you go to St John, for instance, they have Eccles cakes, and the Eccles cakes are incredible, and they serve it with the cheese, and it's just like, wow, manna from heaven. Nowadays, unfortunately, I can't eat it because I'm semi-diabetic. But I do like those English stalwarts a lot.
I do too. Well, so growing up, you had a mother and a grandmother in the house, and your father was where? He was
away in the Air Force in Aden.
Right.
And so I didn't really see much of him. So it was a woman's household. My mum's sister, my aunt was always there as well. So I grew up with a bunch of women who knew how to cook, which was great.
And you all sat down to a meal every night together?
Yes, and we toasted our toast by the fire.
Was yours similar in Toronto?
No, I grew up in Canada. In Toronto. I was one of three boys, and my mum we were very lucky, she was a stay-at-home mum. She could make almost anything happen instantly. She had a deep freeze in the basement, and sometimes we'd come back from school or a sports match, and we'd bring two friends along. And she'd say, no problem. And she'd go downstairs and she'd thaw out some pastry, she'd thaw out some meat, she'd thaw out a tomato sauce or something then prepared in advance. suddenly the dinner could just expand or change, with 30 minutes notice. And meals were important. Although given it was 3 boys and there was a lot going on, it was a lot of meals on the hop.
3 boys. You were the
I'm the middle one.
Yeah.
The one thing that Mum was important to her, because we were always coming and going, but Sunday lunch, Sunday dinner was the one time she wanted the family to be around the table and have more of a sense of occasion. And that was a traditional English roast. My grandparents on my mother's side were from the north and the south of Ireland, and my grandparents on my father's side were from England and Wales. So a lot of those traditions came across to Canada, and Sunday roast, Yorkshire pudding, roast potatoes, roast beef, Brussels sprouts, beans, carrots, a really good gravy, and then always a baked pie or cake or sweet for dessert. My British grandmother was an amazing baker.
So you both had grandmothers that were
I
forced
love
in
my
your...
grandmother. I think grandparents are so important.
They are. I agree.
The thing about my grandmother was that because we had a garden, we grew all our own produce because it was so much cheaper. And my grandmother had green fingers, so we always had fresh vegetables.
Yeah.
Hardly ever had processed peas. I mean, the great advantage in those days that food wasn't really, instant. You didn't, no instant whips, no instant this, mashed potato. It was all genuinely from the garden, which was delicious. So, I mean, I remember shelling the peas every Sunday morning. That was, like David, Sunday roast was very important for the family gathering. So shelling the peas was one thing, peeling the potatoes was another, broad beans was another. So we always had good produce because we couldn't afford to buy them because, times were hard after the war, and the Russian, we had a tiny bottle of orange juice which you diluted and poured the water into. But I never felt as if we were missing anything.
Feel denied.
No,
You didn't
no.
feel, yeah. But neither of your mothers worked. They didn't have to combine a career with cooking.
Your mother worked.
My mother worked all the time, and
What was
she
her
worked
job?
really, really hard as well. And she worked in a shop, she worked in a dairy, she worked at the Air Force. She'd always come home and make dinner. Yeah, she was a very hard-working woman, but still cooked.
Did either... Oh, sorry.
She raised Elton as a single mom.
Yeah.
And so, his ability to, study and take lessons and learn and everything, his mom worked very, very hard providing for the family to allow him to do that. That's what got him on his path to be who he is today.
Did you ever go to restaurants as a
No,
child?
I can't. The only time I remember going to a restaurant is when I went to a Chinese restaurant in Harrow. We lived in Pinner. And Chinese restaurants suddenly became the rage. Coffee bars were the rage before that. But we went for a Chinese meal. That's the first restaurant I can ever remember going to. And it was just, wow, we had bean sprouts. And it was just so delicious. And it was so exotic. And I remember I was so excited to go to this Chinese restaurant. There weren't many in the area. There was one in Harrow. There wasn't certainly one in Pinner. But it was just an incredible occasion. And that's the first exotic food I ever really had.
How old were you?
I don't know, 8 or 9 maybe.
Yeah. And did you go to restaurants?
It was a very, very special treat.
Special occasion.
Yeah, because, again, it was expensive and it was a big treat. What we never had was fast food. My mother was very anti-fast food. She just didn't think it was good for us. I think she was ahead of her time with that.
There wasn't any fast food when I grew up. I'm that old.
Fast food was boiling the cabbage for 10 minutes instead of 15.
When I went to school, there suddenly there was a Wimpy Bar when I was about 15.
Oh.
That's the first fast food place I can ever remember.
Did you? So, but you both. What is interesting to talk to you both is that food was important to you, and delicious food was important to you, and you grew up with a sense of that importance in your life.
Well, meals were very social.
Yeah.
It's when you got together. I mean, when I went to school, I had school meals, which were vile.
That was a day school? That was
It
just
was
a
just
state
awful.
school?
Just awful, awful, awful. But
Yeah.
then you come home at night, and that was the day. That's where you gathered. Breakfast was just on the run, really, to get to school. But the meal at night was always important, and of course, the weekend, the Sunday lunch was really important.
And when you both, in different stages of your life, left this cocoon of your grandmother's, your food, your mother rustling something up when a friend came for you to talk, when each of you, would you tell me when did you leave home? How old were you when you suddenly were out on your own and thinking about food in your own way?
When I met Bernie, that was, what was I? Like 19 maybe,
Yeah.
or 20. And we shared a flat in Islington.
And did it have a kitchen? Did
He
you?
did have a kitchen, but I'm incapable of cooking anything. So,
Okay.
and Bernie is too. So we just
What
ate
did
out.
you eat?
We ate out.
You ate out all the time.
Yeah.
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 And would you seek out restaurants, or would you just grab something, a
Fish and
sandwich?
chips,
Fish
stuff
and
like
chips.
that.
Yeah.
Cheap things, because we couldn't afford expensive things. But never, the first real exciting restaurant I went to was when Dick James took her to a restaurant off of Tottenham Court Road. And
Who was Dick James?
Dick James was my publisher and my manager who, published the Beatles. He
Yeah.
was very famous.
First person to sign Elton.
Yeah. And so we went to this restaurant called La Maisonnette. And I had a prawn cocktail, and I'd never seen anything like it. I didn't know what to do. What's this?
Yeah.
So that was the first posh, in inverted commas, restaurant that I ever went to.
But Paul McCartney told me that same experience that when he went, was taken by, would it be Brian Epstein?
Brian Epstein, yeah.
To, again, another Ma Maisonnette or Montclair or Bontemps.
Yeah.
And it was suddenly an eye-opener. He said it was the first time he'd only had cheap wine with John Lennon. They used to really, and they couldn't understand the point of wine because it tasted so terrible, because it was so cheap. And then he went and had a good glass of wine and realized what life could be. Did you have the same feeling about your prawn cocktail?
Yeah, exactly. It was like, oh, and the bread was lovely, and it was like beautiful bread rolls and crispy, and you thought, well, this is a step up. I mean, it's not the Aberdeen Steakhouse, this one. It's not. This is a proper restaurant.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Aberdeen Steakhouse.
Yeah, you've just really hurt a lot of people's feelings there.
But to me,
Okay.
the Aberdeen Steakhouse was posh.
That was posh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember once I was in New York and my parents used to take us as a special treat to this restaurant. And then I was with a girlfriend who was a friend of mine, and she said her parents were deciding where to go out to eat. And they mentioned this restaurant, and her parents said, "Oh, we're not going to a place like that." And I thought, that was our special place.
Well, I thought the Aberdeen Steakhouse was the poshest
And
place
you
in the
thought
world.
that was, yeah. What about you?
When I was working in advertising, you were taking out clients and you were entertaining them. So that was a little bit like being let off the leash to explore and have fun. And you wanted to treat your clients well, and you were able to take them to nice restaurants. And Toronto, where I grew up, has it's a great restaurant town. It's very international. So what you get exposed to was very, very sophisticated and very, very worldly. And that was I've never eaten like that in my life. That was really special.
And so back to the apartment. You lived in Islington, you ate out, you sort of grabbed food, and then slowly, with your success, you were able to go. And at that point, being able to eat food in other restaurants, did you
When I became successful, it was a different kettle of fish. I met people who were more sophisticated than I was, who knew the London restaurant scene and everything. And I started going to better places with them. It's just the journey. I was starting to play better venues. I was starting to eat at better restaurants. I was starting to earn more money. I was starting to live in a better place. And as you do things like that, step by step, you get introduced to different things, and it was lovely. It was a wonderful journey in every respect. I never collected art until I suddenly became wealthy enough to buy some prints, and the whole journey just went hand in hand. And yes, I loved going to lovely restaurants. I remember when I first went, there was 2 restaurants in Covent Garden called The Garden and Inigo Jones. And
Inigo Jones, I remember Inigo Jones.
I used to go there all the time.
That was English food, wasn't it?
Yes.
Being called Inigo
Yeah.
Jones, yeah. Did you go to Greek, or did you discover Japanese?
No, I never went abroad at all, hardly.
Yeah.
I went to America, but I never really ate in France, because I never really went to France or Italy or any places. That came later on.
Yeah.
I was introduced to American cuisine, in inverted commas. I don't really think they have a cuisine unless you're in the South and it's chicken, and the food is incredible in the South.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it is.
Do you think, what do you like in the South? Do you
I like all sorts of things that aren't good for me.
like
Fried chicken.
Fried chicken, yeah.
Donuts. I mean, if I had a death row meal, it wouldn't contain anything except sweets, because I can't eat them now. So I'd have ice cream, donuts, apple pie, rhubarb crumble, blah, blah, blah.
I get it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't eat any sugar now at all?
No.
Yeah. And do you crave or miss, or have you now, how long has it been since you've eaten sugar?
For a long time, right?
Yeah.
I can have an apple.
Yeah.
I can eat a bit of melon.
Yeah.
But as long as you're sensible about it, it doesn't shoot your blood sugar up. But what I crave is chocolate.
Yeah.
And ice cream. I can't have any ice cream.
You
And
can
I
have
love
chocolate
ice
without
cream.
sugar, can you?
Yeah.
There's not that.
There's some good
It's
sugar-free
hardcore.
chocolates.
It's very.
Yeah.
It's
We've
very,
just ordered some from Italy, which he kindly brought me back from, where was it?
When I was in just outside of Positano.
Let's talk about work and eating. So if you know you're having a concert, would you have a meal before, or do you go out hungry, or do you
I would
Tell
probably
me about.
eat, if my shows usually start at 8, or they used to because I'm not doing them anymore, but I would eat probably at 5:30, something not too heavy.
What would it be like? What would you? Have?
It would be probably a little steak and some vegetables. And that'd probably be it. Just some protein and some vegetables. Because you can't go on stage when you're full up. It's
can't,
just not.
no.
It's very unpleasant. So that would be it. It was a ritual. My whole...
What was
I would-
your ritual? So your ritual is to eat at 5:30 by yourself? Or
Yes.
do you
Oh, yeah.
see people before, or
No, it was just me.
Yourself.
Unless he's there.
yeah? And then you go out and you have water, presumably.
Water.
Yeah.
And then off. I get to the venue at 3 o'clock. I go to sleep till 5:30. And then I have my dinner. Then I faff around getting ready. And then that's it. It's just a ritual that happens all the time. 5:30 is the regular meal time.
5:30.
Yeah.
And what about afterwards? Do you
Not
eat
really.
afterwards?
No.
Yeah.
Usually I'm on a plane.
Yeah.
It's...
You might have a sandwich.
Huh?
You
Might have a sandwich,
Half
yeah.
a sandwich.
Yeah.
When do you have the opportunity to explore a city then? If you're giving a concert in a city, do you have a sense of where you are, that you can sort of be where you are? Or it is purely arriving, sleeping, performing, and then...
It's all a blur, to be
It's
honest
a
with
blur.
you. It is. There's no time to sightsee. But then you realise if you're in Paris and you're in Italy or you're in Denmark or places that you feel, I mean, if you're in Romania and Bulgaria, it's different because you've never experienced it before. But the places I know, I'm used to. But to be honest with you, it's a routine. There's no time to stop and enjoy the scenery. You go you arrive at the airport, get in the car, go to the show, relax, eat, do the show, fly off to another place.
But you do travel for pleasure. So
Absolutely.
you have memories of a restaurant in Florence. You have memories of a restaurant in Venice. Are there other cities that you really, other than the two Italian ones, in France or in...
Well, the south of France, we have a house in
Where,
Nice.
yes.
So we're introduced to a restaurant in Nice called La Petite Maison. And it was Hubert de Givenchy that recommended it to us because he
Yes.
was someone that welcomed us when we first came down and gave us a few pointers on places to go and people to know. And that became a real ritual for us. Every summer we would go there and be looked after by Nicole at least once a week, once every
She's
two
quite
weeks.
a character.
Yeah.
One time Richard and I were there and we weren't even that bad, and we wanted to leave and she wouldn't let us go. She said and it was going to be the Gypsy Queens. This is like 25
She won the
years
Legion
ago.
d'Honneur too.
She
Yeah,
did get the
she
Legion
should.
d'Honneur. She's a brilliant restaurateur.
Yeah.
And she's
Yeah.
very passionate. She's not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah, not quite. I
But the
could
food
vote for her.
is worth it, and she's always been
And
really
they
kind to
spoil
us
too.
and the boys.
They spoil us.
Again, we never see a
Yeah.
menu when we go there.
Yeah.
Literally, Nicole just feeds us, so it's like course after course
Maybe
after
we should
course.
do that in the River Cafe. Just feed you.
It's a lot of food,
Yeah.
which is why we don't go too often because
Yeah.
it's quite rich.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of butter and a lot of olive oil.
Do you eat out much in the south of France, or do you mostly
Well,
home?
we've had a wonderful chef who's cooked for us for over 20 years, and I think because Elton spends so much time traveling on the road, and I travel a lot for work as well. The greatest luxury in the world is staying in your own home and eating wonderful food.
And we have a wonderful terrace there, which is just perfect for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. It's just, you can't drag yourself away from the table. It's a conversation table.
Yeah.
And the view is amazing. So why would you bother to go out?
And all our friends come to visit us, so that's the time we catch up with the people
Yeah.
we love. On that beautiful terrace, eating fantastic food, all the local produce. It's like the food basket of the world there, and you get fantastic produce and everything
Zachary goes
freshly
fishing
prepared.
and comes back with
I
dinner.
saw that fish. I know. So I was going to ask you, growing up as you did, with the importance of food, the importance of the table, the importance of that kind of sharing of your time with food. What about the boys? How do you do it with them? What will they? When I'm interviewing them in 15 years, what will they tell me about their life as?
They would say they had the best time. I mean, they just, they love Gautier the chef in the summer. And Zachary, as I say, goes out fishing, comes back with a hake, we eat it, and it's just like, it's such a great feeling and I think he loves it, the fact that we're eating dinner and he caught it. Because the summer really, it's not just about, it's more about them than us. It's about, we want to give them a great memory of summer. So their kids have their friends come and stay with us with their parents. So it's really, we pay more attention to them than we do to ourselves.
And meals are sacred. So no phones at the table, no television on in the background. It's all about conversation. It's all about connection. It's where we catch up because we all have busy lives and we hear about each other's days. And during lockdown, where we were with the boys 3 meals a day, when we just talked all the time about what was going on in the world and told funny stories or learned about his history or my history. And the food is part of that brings you together.
Food is about sharing time with your children. It's something that you want to explore, to tell you about another country. It's also comfort. And I was wondering, my last question of a very beautiful interview, and thank you, is to ask you if you needed comfort from a food, is there a food that you would go to?
Comfort food. Bacon sandwich.
Bacon sandwich.
Probably a really basic pasta. Like a simple pasta.
Like Marguerite pasta.
Marguerite pasta, which I love, probably with a bit of cheese.
A lot of
even simple pasta with
pasta
butter
and
butter and parmesan.
Yeah, I think so too.
So delicious.
Pasta is very comforting,
and very comforting.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's very comforting to me too. But if I'm here, and a bacon sandwich is much easier to prepare. So
what do you do? How do you make a bacon sandwich, Elton John?
On whole wheat bread with butter and proper English bacon, not Danish, not streaky, but luscious bacon with the fat cut off and cooked quite well, so it's quite crackly.
Okay, I'd like to have one of those. Thank you so much. It's great
Thank
to
you,
talk to
Ruthie.
you. It's really lovely.
We love this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice.